Captain's log. Galactic date 4872.3. We have discovered yet another life-bearing planet in the backwater spiral arm designated Orion. Initial scans indicate a Class C civilization with rudimentary space travel capabilities. Standard observation protocols are in effect. End log. Captain Krill closed his three-eyed communication portal and swiveled his chair toward the main view screen. Zork, what's your preliminary assessment? The ship's lead xenobiologist adjusted his tentacles nervously. Well, Captain, that's just it. I'm confused. Confused. You've catalogued over 300 sentient species. What could possibly be confusing about yet another bipedal mammalian civilization? Zork's epidermis flushed a deep purple, the universal sign of scientific embarrassment across the known galaxy. It's their classification system, sir. It makes no sense. Research assistant Glip floated over, her anti-gravity harness humming softly. Captain, you should see this. The humans, that's what they call themselves, they've organized all life on their planet into these arbitrary kingdoms, and they keep changing them. First it was 2 kingdoms, then 3, then 4, and now it's 6. Or maybe 5. They can't decide. Krill's antennae twitched with annoyance. So they're indecisive taxonomists. What's the problem? The problem, Zork bubbled through his speech orifice, is that they don't even agree on what they are. Watch this data stream. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a human educational facility. A small human was answering a question. Humans are mammals because we have hair, give birth to live young, and produce milk. The screen split to show another human, this one in a religious building. Humans are made in the divine image, separate from and above all animals. A third human in a laboratory. Genetically, we're 96% identical to bonobos. We're just another great ape. A fourth human on a digital communication platform. Listen, I identify as a werewolf on full moons and a mermaid during beach season. Species is just a social construct. Captain Krill's exoskeleton creaked as he leaned forward. Are these specimens defective? No, sir. Glip replied, her voice modulator set to academic excitement. This is standard human discourse. They simultaneously insist they're animals, and then act offended if you imply they're animals. They claim to be rational beings, but they've spent most of their history at war. They say they're conscious, but they can't agree on what consciousness is. Maybe it's a developmental phase, the captain suggested. Zork's tentacles performed the universal gesture for not a chance in the Horsehead Nebula, sir. They've been like this for thousands of years. Look at these historical records. The screen showed ancient human philosophers arguing about whether humans were rational animals, political animals, featherless bipeds, or fallen celestial beings. Then it jumped to modern humans debating whether they were biological machines, evolved apes, spiritual entities, or simulation avatars. It gets worse, Glip chimed in. Observe their behavior. The view screen displayed a rapid montage of humans. A human risking their life to save a small mammal from drowning. Another human casually destroying a forest to build luxury dwellings. A human creating breathtaking art. Another human arguing passionately about the shape of a disposable beverage container. They're completely contradictory, Zork exclaimed, his epidermis now cycling through shades of purple and teal. According to our records, every known sentient species has a clear self-concept. The Andorians know they're silicon-based communal philosophers. The Rigelians know they're aquatic emotional architects. Even the bizarre cloud entities know they're charged particle collective poets. Captain Krill drummed his appendages on the command chair. So the humans don't know what they are. Why does this matter to our mission? Zork and Glip exchanged a worried look, or the closest approximation possible between a tentacled cephalopod and a gelatinous hover being. Captain Zork said gravely, in all our explorations we've discovered one universal truth: a species that doesn't know what it is capable of becoming anything, and that makes humans the most unpredictable and potentially dangerous species we've ever encountered. Glip's hover harness dipped toward the floor, the xenoanthropological equivalent of a nod. We've been monitoring their global information network, they call it the Internet. And in just one rotation of their planet, we've observed individuals of their species claim to be enlightened beings, mere animals, future gods, cosmic accidents, spiritual vessels, biological robots, and people who can't even Can't even what the captain asked. That's just it, sir. They don't finish the thought. They can't even as a complete concept. Captain Krill's exoskeleton paled. In 300 cycles of exploration, he'd never encountered a species so inconsistent. Zork, Glip, establish a full observation team. I want eyes on these humans around their planetary rotation cycle. If they don't know what they are, we need to figure it out before they do. Because a species that could be anything, his voice lowered to a whisper, ... might become everything we fear. As the view screen shifted to show a human simultaneously rescuing an injured animal while eating another animal's cooked flesh, Zork's research appendage began noting Day 1. Humans remain a paradox wrapped in contradictions, served with a side of cognitive dissonance. Further study urgently required. 3 Earth weeks later, Zork and Glip had established observation posts in what humans called strategic locations, which apparently meant places with good coffee. Observation log. Earth Day 22. Zork dictated while his adaptive camouflage made him appear as a mildly disheveled professor with elbow patches. The contradictions continue to multiply. Humans claim to love nature while systematically destroying it. They profess devotion to knowledge while ignoring experts. They create artificial intelligence and then make movies about how it will kill them. I remain baffled. Glip, disguised as a trendy floating tablet, the perfect cover in a coffee shop, hovered near Zork's table. I've identified 3 primary subjects for our intensive study. First is Designation Jack, a delivery person who transports packages for online retailers while loudly complaining about online retailers. The view screen showed a lanky man with perpetually tousled hair and a permanent expression of amused disbelief, sorting packages in his delivery vehicle while talking to himself. This morning, Jack delivered 14 packages of exercise equipment to people who paid extra for fast delivery because they didn't want to go outside to purchase exercise equipment they'll use to simulate going outside. Zork's disguised tentacles trembled. Fascinating. And deeply concerning. Subject 2, Glip continued. Is Designation Mira a human scientist specializing in quantum physics who nonetheless reads her horoscope daily and adjusts her schedule according to Mercury's retrograde status, a phenomenon she knows is merely an optical illusion? The screen showed a brilliant-looking woman in a lab coat, simultaneously calculating complex equations while checking a star chart app with her free hand. And the third, Designation Dex, a young college student who spends equal time arguing for environmental protection on digital platforms and ordering single-use products with excessive packaging. The view screen displayed a fresh-faced youth with colorful hair alternating between typing passionate environmental manifestos and clicking buy now on 16 different websites. Captain Krill, who had been silently observing from the ship, finally spoke through their secure channel. I don't understand. Are these defective specimens or representative ones? Zork's camouflage sighed, an unnecessary but convincing touch. That's just it, Captain. According to our data, these are perfectly average humans. The contradiction isn't the exception, it's the rule. It's impossible, Krill declared. No species can function with such cognitive dissonance. And yet Glip chimed in. They built a global civilization, created art that makes even the Rigelian emotional architects weep, and developed sciences that, while primitive, show remarkable intuitive leaps, all while having no idea what they actually are. The 3 aliens watched as their subjects went about their day. Jack delivered packages to a self-proclaimed minimalist who ordered 3 different decluttering books and a storage system for possessions they weren't willing to discard. Mira published a peer-reviewed paper on quantum entanglement, then called her mother to discuss whether her romantic troubles were due to being a Scorpio. Dex attended a climate protest, then ordered takeout that came in enough plastic to choke a small ocean. I've developed a theory, Zork said finally. Humans don't operate on logic or consistency. They operate on stories. Stories, Krill and Glip asked simultaneously. Yes. They tell themselves stories about who they are, moment to moment, and act according to whatever story currently has prominence in their consciousness. The stories change constantly, which is why their behavior seems so erratic. Glip's tablet form brightened with interest. That would explain the massive amount of fiction they consume. They're not just entertained by stories, they're literally running on them. Krill's voice turned grave. Is this a threat assessment? Zork watched as Jack helped an elderly human across a busy street, then immediately yelled at another human for driving too slowly. "I honestly don't know, Captain. In some ways, they're the most empathetic species we've encountered. In others, they're frightfully cruel, sometimes in the same moment." "Keep observing," Krill ordered. "If they truly don't know what they are, we need to determine what they're capable of becoming." As the day progressed, the observations became increasingly perplexing. Jack found a lost wallet and returned it with all money intact, then borrowed office supplies from his workplace. Mira gave a brilliant lecture on the material universe being governed by immutable laws, then attended a manifestation workshop about creating reality with thoughts. Dex organized a beach cleanup in the morning and left an energy drink can on the same beach that afternoon. "This is giving me a headache," Glip complained as her tablet form developed glitchy pixels from processing the contradictions. "We need to consult the Galactic Classification Manual," Zork decided. "There must be a category for them." That evening, back on the ship, Zork and Glip went through every known classification system. Logical beings? Definitely not. Emotional beings? Yes, but inconsistently so. Instinct-driven? Sometimes. Culturally determined? Partially. Algorithm-based decision-makers? Occasionally. Random behavior generators? Frequently. "This is unprecedented," Zork finally admitted, his tentacles drooping with scientific defeat. "They fit every category and no category simultaneously. They're quantum beings existing in all possible states until observed, and even then, the observation only temporarily collapses their behavioral waveform." Captain Krill reviewed their findings with increasing concern. "If we can't classify them, we can't predict them. And if we can't predict them, they're potentially more dangerous than any species we've ever encountered," Glip finished. "Or more miraculous," Zork added quietly. As the Earth rotated into its night phase, the three aliens watched humans continue their baffling behaviors, creating and destroying, loving and hating, building and demolishing, all while remaining blissfully unaware of perhaps their most remarkable quality. They had no idea what they were, and that made them capable of being anything. "Emergency Science Council meeting, Day 42 of Earth observation," Captain Krill announced to the assembled alien crew. The ship's conference room was filled with various lifeforms, from gaseous cloud intellectuals to crystalline hive minds, all united by one common emotion: total bafflement regarding humans. Zork stood at the presentation area, his tentacles managing multiple holographic displays. "Fellow researchers, we face an unprecedented classification crisis. After 6 Earth weeks of intensive study, we still cannot determine what humans are." A murmur rippled through the assembled xenoscientists. "Ridiculous," huffed Dr. Phlox, a respected taxonomist whose body consisted entirely of organized electrical impulses. "Every sentient species falls into one of our 739 standard categories. Just run the algorithm again." Glip hovered forward, her tablet disguise shed in favor of her natural gelatinous form. "We've run it 3,942 times. Each time, the system crashes with the same error message: insufficient parameters, subject exceeds classification boundaries." "Impossible," Phlox sparked indignantly. "See for yourself," Zork said, projecting their latest observations. The screen showed Jack adopting a stray animal despite complaining about expenses, then calculating the tax benefits of the adoption while simultaneously naming the creature Sir Fluffington III. It cut to Mira publishing research disproving astrology's validity, then immediately checking her horoscope and adjusting her lab schedule because Venus was entering her creativity sector. Then Dex appeared, presenting an impassioned speech about digital privacy while live streaming the entire thing and tagging his location. Dr. Fox's electrical pattern dimmed with confusion. "Perhaps they're in an early developmental phase." "That was our initial hypothesis," Zork explained, "but their historical records show they've been this way for thousands of years. They built civilization, developed technology, created art and philosophy, all while having no consistent idea of what they are." "Could they be a collective species with distributed consciousness?" suggested a methane-based psychologist from the rear of the room. "Negative," Glip replied. "They're fiercely individual, yet also intensely social. They form groups based on shared stories, then fight other groups with different stories. Then switch groups when their personal story changes. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Krill finally spoke. We need to face facts. We've encountered a species that cannot be classified because they themselves don't know what they are, and worse, they don't seem bothered by this lack of self-knowledge. It gets more concerning, Zork added, bringing up new data. Their brain scans show they're capable of believing contradictory things simultaneously without cognitive distress. They call it compartmentalization, and they're exceptionally good at it. This is a nightmare for predictive modeling, moaned the ship's forecasting AI, its holographic face showing the machine equivalent of existential dread. How can I predict a species that doesn't follow its own established patterns? Chief Security Officer Grex, a silicon-based lifeform known for paranoia that had proven useful exactly 73 times in past encounters, raised a rocky appendage. Captain, I recommend immediate quarantine protocols. A species this unpredictable is inherently dangerous. Overreaction, countered the ship's anthropologist Dr. Lemma. Their unpredictability has led to both atrocities and remarkable acts of beauty. They're dangerous, yes, but also fascinating. As the debate heated up, the view screen suddenly showed all 3 human subjects doing something that caused the entire alien crew to freeze in shock. Jack was crying over a fictional story on his viewing device. Mira was laughing at a philosophical paradox. Dex was having an emotional argument with an automated customer service system. They have feelings about things that don't exist, whispered Dr. Lemma in awe. They apply logic to emotions, and emotions to logic, muttered Dr. Phlox. They form attachments to both living beings and inanimate objects, noted Glip. Zork's tentacles trembled with the implications. I believe we've found the core of the classification problem. Humans don't just fail to know what they are, they actively resist final definition. It's as if their fundamental nature is potential itself. Captain Krill's exoskeleton paled. A species whose nature is pure potential. That's not just unclassifiable, that's terrifying, offered Security Officer Grex. Miraculous, countered Dr. Lemma. Both, concluded Zork. And neither. Just like humans themselves. The ship's AI suddenly projected an alert probability of accurate prediction regarding human behavior has dropped below acceptable parameters. Recommendation: direct contact for data collection. The room erupted in alarmed noises from various species' communication organs. Direct contact? With an unclassifiable species, Grex's silicon form practically grated with anxiety. The risk assessment is incalculable because we cannot calculate it. Precisely why we need more data, Zork argued. We've reached the limits of passive observation. Their contradictions have broken our classification systems, our prediction models, and apparently our AI's confidence algorithms. Captain Krill raised all 4 of his appendages for silence. I've made my decision. We will initiate limited, controlled contact for research purposes only. Select the human-designated Jack as our primary subject. His delivery occupation provides a logical context for unexpected encounters. What's our official research question? Asked Glip, preparing to update the mission parameters. Zork's skin cycled through patterns of academic excitement. Something no xenoanthropologist has ever had to ask before when a species doesn't know what it is. What can it become? As the meeting adjourned, the aliens didn't notice one final observation on their screen: all 3 humans, separated by miles, simultaneously looking up at the night sky with identical expressions of wonder. Momentarily united in the uniquely human combination of existential confusion and cosmic curiosity. Back in his quarters, Zork added a personal note to his research log: the most terrifying thing about humans isn't their technology, their capacity for violence, or even their unpredictability. The most terrifying thing is that they don't know what they are, and that might be their greatest strength. Operation Just Say Hawaii commenced on a Tuesday morning, which the aliens had determined was the most mundane day in human existence, perfect for minimizing the impact of first contact. Zork had chosen a park bench for the encounter, disguised as what humans called an ordinary guy, a concept so nebulous it had required 17 research cycles to approximate. Glip lurked nearby as a smart speaker someone had inexplicably left in a bush. Target approaching, Glip whispered through a tiny speaker. Subject Jack is delivering a package to the house across the street. Zork's disguised form fidgeted nervously. Despite decades of xenoanthropological experience, he'd never initiated contact with a species that might simultaneously hug him, punch him, philosophize with him, or ask him about his investment portfolio. "Remember the protocol," Captain Krill's voice crackled through their comms. "Simple greeting, basic question, gauge reaction. No probing about their contradictory nature or existential confusion." Jack was whistling as he walked back to his delivery vehicle, tossing his scanner in the air and catching it rhythmically. Now or never, Zork thought. "Hello, fellow human," he called out, immediately regretting his awkward phrasing. "Lovely weather for existing, isn't it?" Jack paused, scanner in midair. Yeah, I guess. Kind of humid, though." Zork's training hadn't covered meteorological opinions. "Yes, the atmospheric moisture content is disagreeable." "Man, you sound like my GPS when it glitches," Jack laughed. "You okay, buddy?" Before Zork could respond, a jogger passed by, saw Glip's smart speakerphone, and said, "Hey, free tech." She promptly scooped Glip up, ignoring the startled wait, what that emanated from Glip's speaker. "Your personal assistant device," Zork blurted, tentacles briefly distorting his human disguise. "It's defective and government property." The jogger, suddenly suspicious of free technology that talked on its own, quickly set Glip down. "Oh, is this one of those police surveillance things?" "No thanks," she jogged away, glaring. Jack watched this exchange with amusement. "Weird day, huh? You some kind of tech developer or something?" "Yes, developer. Of technology. For humans. Because I am one. Zork's training in human interaction was proving woefully inadequate." Cool Jack seemed unfazed by the strange encounter, exactly as their research had predicted. Humans were so accustomed to oddity that actual aliens barely registered as unusual. What kind of tech? "Classification systems," Zork answered truthfully. Then hastily added, "For online shopping." Jack's eyes lit up. "Oh man, those are the worst. Yesterday the app asked if a wheelbarrow was a beauty product. The algorithms are garbage." Zork saw his research opportunity. "How would you classify yourself, just out of curiosity?" "Classify myself," Jack laughed. "Dude, I barely know what I'm having for lunch, let alone what I am in the grand scheme. Some days I think I'm a delivery guy working toward my real life. Other days I think this is my real life, and on really weird nights after too many tacos. I wonder if we're all just characters in some cosmic video game." Zork's disguised form nearly short-circuited with excitement, unprompted existential uncertainty. "And that doesn't bother you? Not knowing?" Jack shrugged. "Isn't that just being human? Like, who actually has it all figured out? Nobody I've met." Meanwhile, across town, the secondary contact team was faring worse. Dr. Lemma, disguised as a chill professor, another baffling human concept, had approached Mira outside her laboratory. The conversation had started well enough, but took an unexpected turn when Mira became convinced Lemma was trying to recruit her for a multi-level marketing scheme. "I don't want to join your Galactic Understanding program," Mira was saying, making aggressive air quotes. "And your pitch about expanding my consciousness beyond terrestrial limitations sounds like that ayahuasca retreat my cousin tried to sell me on." "But I merely wish to discuss your species' unique cognitive," Dr. Lemma tried again. "Look, I've got actual science to do," Mira interrupted, "not whatever crystal healing quantum misappropriating woo you're peddling." Though she hesitated, "My horoscope did say I'd meet a strange person today who'd change my perspective. What's your star sign?" Before Lemma could explain that her species reproduced through quantum fission rather than under zodiacal influence, her disguise glitched, briefly revealing a shimmer of her true crystalline form. Mira gasped. "Are you glowing?" "Light reflection anomaly," Lemma said quickly. "Very rare skin condition." Mira studied her curiously, the scientist briefly overriding the skeptic. "You know, my lab has some experimental imaging equipment that could." Lemma's panic button was pushed so quickly it nearly broke. As for the third contact team with Dex, well, that had gone spectacularly wrong when the subject had immediately pulled out his phone and live-streamed the weird government types asking existential questions in the campus coffee shop. They were now being analyzed by thousands of internet users, with theories ranging from psychology experiment to alien infiltrators to viral marketing for a new Netflix show. Ironically, the viral marketing guess was closest if you considered First Contact a kind of cosmic advertisement for Earth. Back at the park, Jack checked his watch. Well, this has been different. But I've got 50 more packages to deliver, so. Of course, Zork said. But as Jack turned to leave, he felt a strange need to ask one more question. Does it worry you? Not knowing what you are, what your purpose is, how you fit into the universe. Jack gave a laugh that contained more wisdom than all the combined databases of the alien research vessel. Buddy, that's the human condition. We're all just making it up as we go along. Anyone who says different is selling something. As Jack walked away, whistling again, Zork realized with a jolt of both terror and admiration that they had encountered a species comfortable with cosmic uncertainty, and there was nothing more dangerous or more remarkable in the entire charted universe. Nobody had planned to bring a human aboard the ship. The First Contact protocols had been very clear about that. And yet, there was Jack, sitting in the research vessel's common area, calmly sipping something the food synthesizer had labeled approximation of coffee, while surrounded by increasingly panicked aliens. I still don't understand how this happened, Captain Krill said, his exoskeleton clicking with anxiety. He asked to use the bathroom, Zork explained for the third time. When I explained our observation post didn't have one, he said he really needed to go, and could he use the one in my weird van with the satellite dish before I could stop him. He walked right into the cloaked shuttle, saw the dimensional transcendence corridor, and just said cool, like Doctor Who, and kept walking. Then he saw my true form and said awesome cosplay, Dude Glip added. Jack finished his pseudo coffee with a satisfied slurp. This is pretty good, actually. Tastes like coffee that read a book about coffee and tried its best. He looked around at the assembled alien researchers. So, you guys been watching us long? Dr. Fox's electrical phone buzzed with indignation. This is outrageous. The human should be memory wiped and returned immediately. About that, the ship's medical officer interjected. A being made of sentient smoke wearing a lab coat for the comfort of solids. Our standard memory wipe won't work on him. Human brains are too contradictory. They simultaneously forget things they try to remember and remember things they try to forget. The procedure could just end up giving him perfect recall instead. Jack grinned. That'd be handy for remembering my girlfriend's birthday. You're remarkably calm for someone who just discovered aliens exist, Dr. Lemma observed, her crystalline form refracting light curiously. Jack shrugged. I figured either aliens exist or I'm having a psychotic break. And if it's the second one, freaking out won't help. Besides, you guys seem pretty chill. No anal probes yet. What a barbaric, we would never. Zork's tentacles writhed with offense. Joke, dude. That's what aliens do in our movies. Fascinating Glip hovered closer. You process potential cosmic existential crisis through humor. Is there another way? Jack asked, genuinely curious. Captain Krill had had enough. Since we can't properly wipe his memory, we need to contain this situation. Mr. Jack, can we appeal to your species' sense of confidentiality? Sure, but fair warning, I'm going to tell my girlfriend. And probably read it. Anonymously, though, he added, as if that helped. The captain sighed. Perhaps we can work out a compromise. But first, we would like to ask you some questions. For science. Hit me, Jack said. Then quickly clarified as the security officer tensed, that means go ahead, ask away. Please don't actually hit me. Zork stepped forward, tentacles trembling with academic excitement. We've observed your species for some time, and we cannot determine what you are. You classify yourselves as rational animals, but act irrationally. You claim to be logical, but are driven by emotions. You insist you're individuals, but conform to social norms. Existential crisis much, Jack laughed. Look, I'm just a delivery guy, not a philosopher. That's precisely what fascinates us, Zork exclaimed. Every other sentient species we've encountered has a clear self-concept. They know exactly what they are, what their purpose is, how they fit into the cosmos. But humans, you don't seem bothered by not knowing. Jack considered this while accepting a refill of his pseudo-coffee. Never thought about it that way. I guess. We're whatever we need to be in the moment. Like I'm a son to my parents, a boyfriend to ally, a delivery guy to my customers, a friend to my buddies, an enemy to that one guy at the gym who always takes my locker. The assembled xenoanthropologists furiously took notes as Jack continued his impromptu lecture on human inconsistency. And yeah, sometimes I worry about the meaning of life or whatever, usually at 3 a.m. or when I'm stuck in traffic. But most of the time, I'm just trying to get through the day, have some laughs, not be a jerk, and maybe watch something good on Netflix. But without a fixed identity, how do you function? Dr. Phlox demanded. Electrical patterns showing genuine confusion. How do you make decisions? How do you know what to do? Jack laughed. Bold of you to assume we know what we're doing. The ship's AI interrupted, its holographic face showing the machine equivalent of a headache. I've been analyzing the humans' responses, and I've reached a conclusion: humans operate on a quantum social algorithm with dynamic identity shifting based on contextual needs. Sounds fancy, Jack said. I call it vibing. This simple statement caused such a commotion among the researchers that Jack couldn't help but laugh. These hyper-advanced aliens with their faster-than-light travel and dimensional transcendence corridors were completely flummoxed by the concept of just going with the flow. As the excited academic debate raged around him, Jack pulled out his phone, which somehow still worked on the alien ship, and surreptitiously took a selfie with a group of arguing aliens in the background. What are you doing? Glip noticed first. Just checking if you guys show up in photos. You know, like vampires. We're not mythological creatures, Zork protested. Says the tentacle monster from outer space. Jack grinned. Looking at his phone, he added, cool, you do show up. By the way, anybody know the Wi-Fi password? I promised Ali I'd send her pics from my day, and buddy, she is not going to believe this. As the aliens devolved into fresh panic, Jack just smiled. Maybe not knowing what you are wasn't such a bad thing after all. It certainly kept things interesting. Galactic Xenoanthropological Society, Emergency Assessment Report, Sol 3 inhabitant Zork dictated, his tentacles moving solemnly. After extensive observation and limited contact, we must issue an unprecedented classification approach with caution on classifiable species. The recording drone captured his image as he continued. Humans represent the first encountered sentient species without a fixed self-concept. They simultaneously consider themselves rational while acting emotionally, claim to be civilized while engaging in barbarism, insist they're unique while conforming to group norms, assert they're materialists while believing in immaterial concepts, declare they're conscious of their place in the universe while having no agreement on what that place is. Zork paused dramatically. Most disturbingly, they are completely comfortable with this cognitive dissonance. They make jokes about it. They create art about it. They build religions and philosophies around it. This combination of high intelligence, technological capability, and comfort with existential uncertainty makes them both potentially valuable allies and possibly the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Further study essential. End report. As the recording ended, Zork slumped in his chair. After the Jack incident, as it had come to be known, the research team had been working non-stop to prepare their findings for the Galactic Council. You look troubled, Glip observed, hovering nearby with 2 cups of stimulant fluid. I am, Zork admitted, accepting the beverage with a grateful tentacle. We're recommending continued observation, but after what happened with Jack. You mean how we accidentally abducted him, showed him our technology, confirmed the existence of alien life, and then had to make a deal where he promised to only tell close friends, Reddit, and maybe TikTok if it blows up? Yes, that Zork sighed. Captain Krill is still finalizing the incident report. The compromise we reached was unusual. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Jack was showing off his alien souvenirs to his girlfriend ally. So they gave you a weird coffee mug, she asked skeptically, turning the iridescent object in her hands. It's a multi-dimensional beverage equilibrator, Jack corrected her. But yeah, basically a space mug. Also, check out these photos. He scrolled through his phone, showing pictures that could easily be dismissed as elaborate cosplay or movie props, exactly as the aliens had intended when they allowed him to take documentation of his visit. Jack, if you wanted to skip work to go to a sci-fi convention, you could have just said so, Ally laughed. I'm telling you, they were actual aliens. They've been studying us because they can't figure out what we are. Isn't that wild? The most advanced species in the galaxy, and they're completely confused by humans. Ali patted his hand indulgently. Sure, babe. Hey, did you send these to Jeremy? You know how he loves conspiracy theories. Already did. He's writing a Reddit post about it right now. And before you say anything, yes, the aliens actually suggested Reddit as the perfect place to share the story. Something about it being where human truth goes to become human fiction. As predicted by the alien research team, Jack's story was met with exactly the reception they'd hoped for: viral popularity as obvious fiction. His post got upvotes, awards, and countless comments complimenting his creativity. Several film students asked permission to adapt it into short films. A podcast invited him to speak about creative writing and alien abduction fantasies. The perfect cover story. Back on the research vessel, Captain Krill was reviewing the final recommendations. "So we're proposing a specialized Earth observation post," he confirmed. "Yes," Zork replied. "We need to understand them better. Their unpredictability makes them dangerous, but their creativity makes them fascinating. Did you know Jack suggested 17 new research approaches that none of our scientists had considered, simply because, as he put it, he wasn't boxed in by knowing what he was talking about?" "And the study focus?" Krill asked. Glip projected the proposal primary research question: why humans find things funny. Humor. The captain seemed perplexed. "It appears to be their most sophisticated adaptation to existential uncertainty," Zork explained. "When faced with the unknown, with danger, with the inexplicable, they laugh. We believe it may be the key to their remarkable resilience and adaptability." Plus, Glip added, "Jack said our comedy was worse than airline food jokes from the 90s, whatever that means. I feel professionally challenged." As the ship prepared to establish a long-term observation post, Zork made one final personal log entry. "The true miracle of humans isn't their technology, their art, or even their capacity for both great kindness and terrible cruelty. It's that in a universe demanding specialization and clear identity, they've remained gloriously, dangerously undefined. Every other species knows exactly what they are. Humans discover what they can become. And perhaps, in the end, that's the most powerful adaptation of all." 3 months later, a package arrived at Jack's apartment. Inside was a strange device and a note test subject for human humor research. "Please document reactions. Z." The device, when activated, told the worst alien jokes in the galaxy. Jack laughed until he cried, not because they were funny, but because they were so terribly, wonderfully bad. He recorded his reaction and sent it as requested. On the research base hidden in Earth's orbit, Zork and Glip watched the video with scientific satisfaction. "Hypothesis confirmed," Zork noted. "Humans find failure as amusing as success." "A species that can laugh at the cosmic joke of existence," Glip observed. "No wonder they survive." "No wonder they thrive," Zork corrected. "Computer, begin phase 2 of Project Human, what they may become." As the program initiated, both aliens felt something unusual for scientists: a sense of excitement that bordered on the very human emotion of hope.